Alright, Subpart E, end of the train device. The scope. The subpart contains the requirements related to the performance of the operation testing and the end of the train device unless expressly accepted in the subpart. The requirements for the subpart apply for all trains operating with the track, which is part of the general railroad system of transportation. The design and standard for the one-way end of the train device. Generally, one end of the train device shall be compromised with the rear of the train rear unit located on the last car of the train, while at the front of the train unit located in the cab of the locomotive controlling the train rear unit. The rear unit shall be capable of determining the brake pipe pressure for the rear car of the transmitting the information to the front of the unit. For the display of the locomotive engineer, the rear unit shall be capable of measuring the brake pipe pressure on the rear car within an accuracy of 3 plus or minus pounds per square inch. Brake pipe pressure for variation of 1.1 plus or 1 plus or minus 1 psig. Equipped by bleeder valve that permits the release for any of the portion under the pressure of the rears of the train unit with the associated air hose prior to the detection of the rear of the unit with the brake pipe designated so the internal failure of the unit will not cause undesirable emergency brake application. Equipped with either an air gauge, the means of a visual display for the rear unit brake pipe pressure measurement, or equipped with the pressure relief safety valve to prevent explosion from a high pressure air leak inside the rear of the unit. Reporting rate. Alright, the multiple data transmitting from the rear of the unit shall occur immediately after the variation of the rear car of the brake pipe pressure of plus or minus 2 psigs at the intervals of not greater than 70 seconds. When the variation of the rear of the car brake pipe pressure is over 70-second interval at less than 2 plus or minus 2 psigs. Operating equipment of the rear unit shall be designed to meet the performance requirements of the paragraph BC of the section under the following environmental conditions: at the temperature of negative 40 to 60 degrees Celsius. At a relative humidity of 95% with non-condensed at 50 degrees Celsius, and altitude 0 to 12,000 feet of the main sea level, during vertical lateral vibration of 1 to 12 hertz and 0 to 5 GP peaks, or 15 to 500 hertz at 5 GP peak. During the longitude vibration of 1 and 15 hertz with the 13 G peak to peak, the 15 hertz with the 500 hertz with the 5 G to peak. During the shock of the 10 G peak of 1/10 of the second in any axis. Unique code. Each of the rear units shall have the unique permanent identification code of the transmitter along with the pressure message at the front of the train unit obtained by the Association of American Railroads, 50th F Street with the North Washington, D.C. 20036. Shall name the unique code for the purpose of this section. Unique code is also obtained by the official safety assurance with the compliance and the Federal Railroad Administration, Washington, D.C. 20590. The front unit shall be designed to receive the data message for the rear unit, shall be capable of displaying the rear car brake pipe pressure in the increments not to exceed 1 pound. The display shall be clearly visible and legible in daylight, darkness, engineer, normal operation position. The front of the device shall have the means of entry with the unique identification code with the rear unit being issued. The front unit shall be designed so that it will display a message only from the rear unit with the same code with the entry with the front unit. The front unit shall be designed to meet the requirements of the paragraph D, 2, 3, 4, and 5 of this section. It shall also be designed to meet the performance requirements in this paragraph under the following environmental conditions. 1. At the temperature of 0 to 60 degrees Celsius during the vertical lateral shock of 2 Gs to peak 1 second, during a longitudinal shock of 5 Gs peak of 1/10 of a second. Radio equipment, the radio transmitter in the rear unit and the radio receiver in the front of the unit shall comply with the applicable regulatory requirements of the Federal Communications Commission or the FCC. Use of the transmission format acceptable to the FCC. If the power is supplied by one of the more batteries, the operating life shall be minimum of 36 hours at 0 degrees Celsius. 233.405, designing the performance standard of the two-way end of the train. Two-way end of the train device shall be designed to perform the feature of the applicable one of the end of the train devices described in Statute 232.403. So if those included in Statute 232.403b3. In addition, the two-way end of the train device shall be designed for the performing with the following inlet features. An emergency brake application commanded with the front of the unit of the device shall be activated the emergency air valve at the rear of the train within 1 second. The rear unit of the device shall be sent the acknowledgement message with the front of the unit immediately upon the receipt of the emergency brake application command. The front unit shall listen from the acknowledgement and the repeat of the brake application command if the acknowledgement is not correctly received. The rear unit, one receipt with the properly coded command, shall open the valve into the brake line and hold it into open for the minimum of 15 seconds. This opening valve shall cause the brake line to vent to the exterior. The valve opening shall have the minimum diameter of 3 1/4 inch, and the internal diameter of the hose shall be 5/8 of an inch to effect the emergency brake application. The front unit shall be manually operated with the switch and which activated which shall initiate the emergency brake transmission command to the rear unit, but the locomotive shall be equipped with the manually operated switch of the engineering control stand designated to perform the equivalent function. The switch shall be labeled. Emergency shall be protected so that there will exist no possibility of accidental activation. If all locomotives ordered on or after August 1st, 2001, placed in service for the first time on the after August 1st, 2003, shall design automatic activity the two-way end of the train devices to effectuate an emergency brake application whenever it becomes necessary to the locomotive engineer to place the train air brake in emergency. Availability of front to the rear communication links shall be checked automatically at least every 10 minutes. Means shall be provided with conform the availability of the proper functioning of the emergency valve. Means shall be provided to arm the front rear of the units to ensure the rear unit responds to emergency command only for the properly associated front unit. 232.407 operation requiring use of the two-way end of the train device, prohibiting the on purchase of the non-conforming device. The definition. The following definitions are intended solely for the purpose of identifying those operations subject to the requirements for those use of the two-way end of the trailing device. Heavy grade means for a train operating with 4,000 trailing tons or less section of the tracker, an average speed rate of the 2% or greater over the distance of the two continuous miles, and for the train operating with the greater than 4,000 trailing tons of the section of the track with average grade of the 1% or greater over the distance of 3 continuous miles. A train means one or more of the locomotives that coupled with one or more of the rail cars, except during the switching operation, where the operation is that classifying cars with a railroad yard for the purposes of making the braking of the trains. Local training means that the train is assigned to perform switching of the en route with the operates for the 4,000 train tons for the less of the travel between the point of the origin and point of the final destination for a distance that is no greater than that which can normally be operated by a single crew and a single tour of duty. For work of the train means a non-revenue service of the train with 4,000 train tons or less that we use the administrative of the upkeep of the service of the railroad. Trailing tons means with the sum of the gross weight expressed in tons of the car, the locomotive, and the train that are provided with the propelling power of the train. General, all trains not specifically expected in paragraph E of the section shall be equipped with it and shall be used either the two-way end of the train device, meaning of the design and performance requirements contained in Statute 232.405 and the device using alternative technology to perform the same function. The new device, each newly device manufactured end of the train device purchased after the railroad after January 2nd, 1998 shall be in two-way end of the train device, meaning the design performance requirement of the events contained in Statute 232.405 and the device using alternative technology to perform the same function. D. Grandfathering. Each two-way the end of the train device purchased by any of the person prior to the July 1st, 1997 shall be deemed to meet the design and performance requirements contained in Statute 232.405. Exemptions. The following type of the trains are exempted from the requirement of the use of the two-way end of the train device. A train with the locomotive consists located at the rear of the end of the train is capable of marking the emergency brake application through the commanding effect by the trail telemetry or by a crew member in the radio contact with the controlling locomotive. Trains operating with a push motor, the ability to effectuate an emergency brake application from the rear of the train. The trains with operational caboose placed in the rear of the train, carrying one or more of the crew members in the radio contact with the controlling locomotive is equipped with an emergency brake valve. Train operating with a secondary full independent brake system capable of safely stopping the train in event of the failure for the primary system. Trains do not operate over the heavy grades that do not exceed 30 miles per hour. 6. Local trains are defined in paragraph A3 of the section that do not operate over the heavy grades. Work trains that are defined in paragraph A4 of the section that do not operate over heavy grades. A. The trains operate exclusively on a track that is not part of the general railroad system. Train must be delivered into the two-section order of the transverse grade. The double hilling or the exemption applies only with the extent of the necessary to transverse the grade only while the train is divided into two or such purposes. 10. The passenger trains in which all the cars of the train are equipped with the emergency brake valve readily accessible to the crew member. 11. The passenger train with having the car with the rear of the train readily accessible, one or more of the crew members in radio contact with the engineer that is equipped with the emergency brake of the valve readily accessible to such a crew member. 12 passenger trains that have the 24 or fewer cars not included with the locomotive and consistent that they are equipped with the operated within accordance with the following train configuration and operation requirements. If the total number of the cars of the passenger train consists of the 12 fewer of the car located not less than halfway through the consistent counting from the first car of the train must be equipped with the emergency brake of the valve readily accessible to the crew member. Alright, 2. If the total number of the cars in the passenger train consists of 13 or to 24, a car located no less than two-thirds of the way through the consistent count from the first car of the train must be equipped with the emergency brake valve readily accessible to the crew member. Prior to descending section of the track with the average grade with the 2% with the grade or over the distance of the 2 continuous miles, the engineer of the train shall communicate with the conductor and ensure that the main member of the crew with the working weight of the 2 radio is stationed with the car with the nearest rearmost readily accessible emergency brake. Valve of the train when the train begins the descent while the train is descending of the section of the track at the average grade with the 2% grade over the distance of 2 continuous miles. A member of the train crew shall occupy the car contained with the rearmost readily accessible emergency brake valve on the train. Be constant with radio communication with the locomotive and the engineer. The crew member shall remain in this case until the train has completely traversed at the heavy grade. After the specification requirements for the use, if the train is required to use the two-way end of the train device, the device shall be armed, operable at the time of the train departs from the point where the device is installed until the train reaches its destination. If the loss of communication occurs with the location where the device is installed, the train may depart with the location as restricted speed for the distance of no more than 1 mile in order to establish communication. When the communication is established, the cumulative values of the head, rear, and unit should be compared with the pursuant to Statute 232-409B of the device tested pursuant to Statute 232-409C, unless the test was performed prior to the installation. 2. The rear unit of the battery shall be sufficiently charged that the initial terminal of each of the part of the point device the initial installed throughout the train trip to ensure the end of the train device will remain operative until the train reaches its destination. The device shall be activated with the effectively at the emergency brake application either by using the manual toggle switch through the automatic activation. Now, whenever this becomes necessary for the locomotive engineer to initiate the emergency application with the air brake, then using either the automatic brake valve or the conductor's emergency brake valve. G. En route with the failure of the device and on the freight of the other non-passengers except for the passenger train required for the equipped with the two-way end of the train device, which are provided in the forward paragraph. The H for this section en route with the failure of the other two-way end of the train devices shall be handled in accordance with this paragraph. If the two-way end device train device equivalent device fails then route the unable to initiate the emergency brake application from the rear of the train due to the certain loss of the communication front to the rear due to the other reason speed of the train on which it is installed shall be limited to 3 miles per hour until the ability of the dependent device to initiate the emergency brake application from the rear of the train is restored. The limitation shall apply to the train using a device that uses an alternative technology to serve the purpose of the two-way end of the train device. With regard to the two-way end of the train device, the loss of communication between the front and the rear of the units is en route with the failure only with the loss of communication has a period of greater than 16 minutes and 30 seconds based on the existing design of the device. The displayer to the engineer of the message that there is a communication failure indicated that the communication has been lost for 16 minutes and 30 seconds or more. 1. If the two-way end, if a two-way end of the train device fails en route, the train on which it is installed in addition with the observing a 30-mile speed limitation shall not operate over the section of the track with an average greater than 2% greater of the distance of the continuous mile unless one of the following alternative measures is provided. Use an occupied helper with locomotive at the end of the train. This alternative may be used only when the following requirements are met. The helper locomotive engineer shall initiate the maintain two-way voice radio communications with the engineer on the head of the train, and this contact shall be verified just prior to the passing of the crest grade. B. If there is a loss of communication prior to the passing of the crest of the grade, the helper locomotive engineer, head of the engineer, shall act on the immediately to stop the train until the voice for the command is resumed in accordance with the railroad operating rules. If there is a loss of communication once the descent has begun, the helper locomotive engineer and the head engineer shall act to stop the train in accordance with the railroad operating rules. If the train has reach the predetermined rate of speed they indicated with the need for the emergency brake, and the brake pipe of the helper locomotive shall be connected and cut into the train line, tested to ensure the operation of using the occupied caboose at the end of the train, in which tested the functionality brake valve capable of initiating emergency brake application for the caboose. The alternative be used by the train service employee in the caboose of the engineer on the head of the train shall be established to maintain two-way railroad device communication responding appropriate to the loss of such communication in the same manner as prescribed for the helper locomotive in the paragraph G11 of this section. 3. The user of railroad control locomotive at the rear of the train under the continuous control of the engineer is in the head of any of the means of the telemetry, but only in such radio-controlled locomotive is capable of initiating an emergency application on the command for the lead controlling locomotive. If the two-way end of the trailing device fails en route while the train is on which the installed with the operating over the second inch of the track, which an average grade of the 2% of the grader for the distance of the 2 continuous miles of the train shall be brought safely to the stop at the first available location in accordance with the railroad operating rules, so that the train may continue within the operation if the railroad provides one of the ulterior measures detailed in paragraph G1 of this section. H. En route failures, devices, and passenger trains. A passenger train required to be equipped with a two-way end of the train device that develops an en route failure of the device, as explained with the paragraph G of this section, shall not operate over the section of the track of the average grade of the 2% of the grader over the distance of the 2 continuous miles until operable two-way end of the trail device is installed at the end of the alternative method of initiating the emergency brake application over the rear of the train is achieved. The acceptance provided with the paragraph of the H1 section and the passenger train. Required to be equipped with a two-way end of the train device if it develops an en route failure to device explained within paragraph G of this section shall be operated with accordance with the following. That a member of the train crew shall be immediately positioned in the car which contains the rearmost readily accessible emergency brake valve on the train shall be equipped with an operable two-way radio with the communication with the locomotive engineer. The locomotive engineer shall periodically make running tests of the train's air brake until the failure is corrected. Each en route failure shall be corrected at the next location where the necessary repairs can be conducted. The next location where the required brake test is to be performed, whichever is for each first. 232.409 Inspection and testing end of the train. After each installation of the front of the rear of the end of the train device, both of the train and before the train departs the railroad shall be determined the identification code of the entered in the front unit, the identification of the unique identification code of the rear unit. B. After each of the installation of either the front of the rear of the unit of the end of the train device, both of the train and before the train departs with the functional capability of the device shall be determined by after the recharging of the train by the comparing of the quantitative value of the air pressure displayed on the front unit with the quantitative value of the air pressure displayed on the rear unit, or on a properly calibrated air gauge at the end of the trailer device shall not be used in the difference between two readings exceeding 3 pounds per square inch. Alright, a two-way end of the train device shall be tested in the initial terminal other than the point of the installation to determine that the device is capable of initiating an emergency brake power application for the rear of the train. If the test is conducted by a person other than a member of the train crew, the locomotive engineer shall be notified when the successful test was performed. The notification required with this paragraph may be provided by the locomotive engineer by any means determined appropriate by the railroad. However, the written electronic record of the notification shall be maintained in the cab of the controlling locomotive. Shall be included the date and the time of the test, location where the test was performed, the name of the test, the name of the person conducted the test. The telemetry equipment shall be tested accuracy, calibrated, and necessary according with the manufacturer's specification procedurally every 368 days. 368 days shall not include the shelf life up to 92 days prior to the replacing of the unit of the service. This test shall include the testing radio frequency modulation of the device, the date and location of the last calibration test. The test, as well as the name of the person performing the calibration test, shall be legible displayed with a resistant sticker, other marking device affected to the outside part, front and unit and the rear unit. However, in the front unit is an integral part of the locomotive is inaccessible, then information may be recorded with the FRA form 618049A and instead of the provided with the rear, that serial number of the unit for this is records. Alright, Subpart F, Introduction of New Brake System Technology.